this is Cheryl, and welcome to our first art club, which will be posted on every second Thursday of the month, starting in September. So our first project we're going to make is the pumpkin picture. You don't have to do lettering. You can do any colors you want. So it's all your preference. I really don't have a pattern made out for it because you probably can just freehand your own pumpkin, but I will, maybe get a pattern out. We will be offering limited amounts of boards available, so it'll be a first come, first serve. So I hope you like this craft. First thing we're going to start with, all the boards are already base coated a white. I'm going to do a wash, like a antiquing wash on the background because I don't want a bright white. So what you're going to do is you're going to take like a dark burnt umber. You're going to want probably to get yourself like a black, a white, a red, like your primary colors, because you can almost mix most of your other colors, so that if you want to do anything specific. I said I have a burnt umber, which I'm going to do as my wash, and then you're going to take it and you're going to mix it with just water in your thing. I always save the caps from my laundry detergent because they make wonderful mixers. They make wonderful water containers to keep on hand. And you're just going to mix it up. You're just going to do like a real watery paint. And then you're just going to brush it on your board because you just want it to be not real white. So you're it's just going to be like an antiquing. You don't have to be neat about it. And if you get too heavy in one spot, you keep a paper towel handy and you can just rub off wherever it's too heavy or not. But you're just going to want to give it a quick wash all over your whole board. And you're going to want to use a wide brush. You could probably, if you have a wider one than this, it'll be helpful. And that's another thing we're going to, in our library of things, we have a set of brushes available for you to check out if you don't have any brushes at home, because that's probably one of your most expensive things, because paints, you can buy a set of it, the dollar store and that, and they're not too expensive, especially if you get primary colors and you learn how to mix your own colors, which that could be one of our episodes we do, is mixing colors. But most people know, like your blue and yellow make green, and red and yellow make orange. So it's just, if you like to paint, you probably have all your paints on hand. I mean, it's an investment, but once you have them, you don't really have to buy them all that quick to replace them. And if you like your background, the white, you can leave it. I just like my stuff antiqued looking. The wind's going to start up and we're going to start having issues here. Start getting some weights laying around. And this board we're using, it's not going to be something that you're going to want to leave outside in direct weather. I mean, if you have a porch that is covered, you would have no problem using this board, because it's not something that it'll warp. So you don't want it to get too much weather. I mean, once you seal it, you could seal your picture and it'll be fine, but the board itself will probably tend to warp a little bit, because it's just like, I don't know if you call it a particle board or whatnot. It was something that was donated to us, so we're all about free to share. So if you have anything out there that you would like to donate, for us to use on crafts. We usually like to have 12 so that we can offer between 12 and 14 of it so that we have enough to share. Ooh. Oh, and I just Okay, yeah, so when we like donations, we're all about the donations. Anything that's free so that, it keeps costs down. We appreciate, doing these programs and everything. So yeah, we just need between 12 or 14 like pieces of wood or slate or buckets or anything you might have that you want to get rid of at the house that we could paint on. I mean, pretty much almost anything is paintable, but before you bring it, you might want to contact us or come see me in the media room, and I'll say whether it's a yes or a no if it's something that we're able to use. But so I said you're going to want to let it dry in between so that it'll won't bleed into your other colors. It doesn't usually take too long. But what you're going to need to do this, you're going to make sure you need water for cleaning your brush. So that'll always be a dirty water. And then you're going to make sure you need a clean cup of water for when you want to use it for blending or adding to, thin your paint or something. So I always have an old meat tray with it's kind of like one of those the absorbent pads under it, and then I have like freezer paper. They make excellent pads for painting because it kind of keeps your paint moist so it doesn't dry out as fast. So it's something nice. I said, but we do have those in the kits for the paint brushes. We have those little round for your paints, so the little painter's palettes, which work out nice. But for me, as much as I paint, I mean, you can see this one's kind of all yucky and I'm going to spill these waters again just anytime soon, so but yeah. And then what you're going to need, you'll need a wide brush for your antiquing that we did. You'll need the wide brush for the stripes that we're going to make. I have a dry brush that you keep dry and it uses for like blending colors. I'll have an angle brush, or it can be like another one of these straight brushes for doing shading, and then just a rounded tip brush and a fine line tipped brush for detail work. It doesn't really take much, and then your colors are going to be all based on what you're going to do. I like to add like highlights and everything to my pumpkin, so I use multiple different colors of orange. I'll use like a lighter orange, and then I'll go through and shade with a darker orange, and then I'll highlight with a lighter orange. So it just all depends upon how much detail you want to add and what you want to get into it. So but basically we're going to have black, green, white, yellow, orange, and brown. So it's just, and from there you can mix your own colors, or you can just use a flat. Just depends on how much detail you want your picture to be and how elaborate, I say, because you can just plain a simple pumpkin on there and be fine. So we're going to start out with my medium colored orange for my pumpkin. I don't think this one's open. Let's try this one. This one is open. And this one is just called a burnt orange. It's kind of one of my favorite. My paints are starting to get a little bit old, so they're kind of getting that. I always call them boogers. So they don't want to come out real easy. So it's like sometimes you just got to open your caps. So you're going to need quite a bit of the orange, and it just looks all boogery. So, but it'll still get the job done. You're just going to mix it up. And I'm just going to freehand my pumpkin on here, and you're just going to do it towards the bottom. If you've seen our picture, let me get it out again. I'll set it over here. You might be able to see it, but it just kind of goes off center. You can do yours all the way across on the bottom. You can do it the off center. You can do it up higher. It is all your personal preference, and that's always the thing about art. You just make it your own. So I think I'm going to start my pumpkin about right here, and it's going to come like here, And then I'm just going to give another little hump here, and then I'm going to do the full rounded sign and go down here. So that's just going to leave me this little bit of edge over here. And I'm just going to use a little bit of my dirty water to add some color here. And you're just going to want to fill all this in. You can fill it solid, or you can leave it showing some of the white in the background. It just depends on your purpose, your preference. I like to have mine base coat as first coat as real dark and covered, but some people just like the more antique look, where when I want the antique, I go in afterwards and add my antiquing to it. It's like I'll get some sandpaper, even newspaper, not newspaper, but more like a paper bag. Makes a wonderful antiquing medium to certain of your paintings. I said it's amazing what just paper bag can roughen it up and give it some character. And I like fat pumpkins. Some people like tall, skinny pumpkins. You can always touch up your edges afterwards. You want to try and get your coat, because you're going to want to make sure it dries in between, because you don't want to, your paint will pull if you try and paint it before it's dried, unless you're just trying to do a shade. If you're going to try and do anything else, like if you go to do like my outline work I want to do to make it look like the pumpkin around here, I said it'll just kind of like bleed and pull up your orange paint. I thought this would be a fun craft to do for September, just because then it'll be ready when you want to put it out for October for your fall decorations. If you're like my sister, she's already putting her fall stuff out in September anyway, so our whole family, we kind of like, we love fall. It's like our favorite time of the year. For decorating and stuff, it's just, and I just myself prefer the weather. I said I don't mind cold, because you could always put more clothes on, but you can always take so much off. So I'm not a hot weather person. As you can tell, I'm wearing a sweater out here, and it's because there's a slight breeze. So I either run, hot or cold, almost anything. Okay, that's covered pretty good. It's already, you can see where it's starting to get a little dull looking. That's where it's drying. So you'll just watch for that, because like here it's drying, so it's like soaking into your board, and you'll want to let that dry before we try and paint anything else. So we're going to do a craft each month, and you want to make sure you rinse out your brushes each time you use them. And if you have wooden brushes, you do not want to let them set in your water. I said, and you gotta, I really loaded this brush, and I shouldn't have, because it gets up into the metal part up here. I said you want to try not to do that, but yeah, you want to make sure your brushes get rinsed out really well, and then you want to dry them flat so that your bristles won't start sticking up and everything. But you want to make sure you get your paint out, so when you're done, you want to wash them like with a warm water and a mild soap, just so they're nice clean. And you'll just take them and you'll rub them in your hand until the soap comes cleaned, so that you'll be able to prolong the use of your brushes. So and then you're going to dry it. There goes the wind. Good catch. Thank you. So I'm going to scoop off this paint. I want to use this again. I'm going to set this right there. And I'm just going to lay this on the ground out of our way. And if your art, do any kind of art, painting, anything like me, I always wear paint. It's always everywhere. So while our pumpkin is drying, I think we're going to start with some of our line work on our background. So I think I'm going to use a green, and I see it in the picture. I said I don't really have that kind of a shade of green, but I'm going to use my forest green, and I will be using my wide paintbrush again. And you want to try and not load your paint on. You can always add more paint, and you can only, not really put it back in. Once it's out, you can't put it back in the jar too well. So you just want to put just a little bit as you would need it. I'm going to put a little bit more. And maybe if I turn it this way, the wind won't catch it. But I'm going to take, and I'm going to start from the top. I'm going to spin my board around so I can get to that. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of water to your brush so you'll get the flow for your paint. And then you're going to dip it into your paint. And on the picture, it just shows it as a, kind of like a wash. It's not a real dark. So I'm going to start going, horizontal on my board. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do 2 brush strokes wide. And that way I don't have to do as many stripes to get down to the bottom. But I see I'm definitely going to need some more paint. So I'm going to make them 2 brush widths wide. And that's why I wear a lot of my paint all over my hands all the time. So where you're getting closer to your pumpkin, you're just going to have to watch and go around your pumpkin, and you'll meet up to it. Okay, you're going to want to make sure these are dry before you come down and do the next stripes, because it'll wash off. We'll go from there, because this looks like, it's darker because that's where these overlap, and you got the lighter. So you just want to make sure it gets a little bit of dry time. Our pumpkin, it looks pretty good. So we're going to let our stripes dry, and then we're going to do some more of the detail on our pumpkin. Brush there, and then we scoop some of this paint off, because I should have brought a new paper out, but this works just fine. Okay, with our pumpkin now, turn it back around. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a highlight around the outside. And what you do is you take a darker color. You can take like a dark brown, burnt umber. You can do a dark green, whatever you prefer. I think black is just a little bit too harsh, so I always either like to use burnt umber or even like a candy bar brown, which is kind of like a brown red, and that's what color I'm going to use. Make sure you shake it up. The candy bar brown, yeah, it's kind of like a brown, but it has like a red hue to it. So if you don't have an angle brush, which I did not bring today, I must have used it at home. So you can take your large flat brush, and what you're going to do, Tony has you're going to have, handy dandy freezer paper is excellent for crafting because this is where you can brush off and get your highlighting. So you're going to take your wide brush and you're going to dip it in and get your water. And then you're going to drag off just a little bit, and then you're going to catch, I'm going to dab just a little bit because I got a lot, and you're going to catch the corner of your brush, and I'll bring it over here so we can see it, and then you're just going to drag your brush like so, and that's going to give you a shade. Okay, so you're going to run that edge of the painted shade, because this is just getting you to blend, that's why you do it on the paper, and you're going to just run it along your pumpkin. It might take a couple times. And another trick is that if you want it to run smoother and longer, is you could even take your brush and with just water and run it along your edge, so that'll give you, you know, more flow. And then when you reload your brush, just load it off on there, and you can start from this end if you want, since you started with the dark that way, and you're just going to run it along. You're just going to try and cover it in. With this type of wood, it's going to be a little bit harder to get a really nice edge, so I'm just going over it to blend it where I want it to right now, and then I'm going to clean out my brush again. Get it as wide. I like a wide shade. Some people like a narrow shade. I want to be able to see my shade. Okay? And that's going to give you around here. You can go through and then shade your corners here. You don't have to. You can leave it as just the pumpkin color, but I like the more finished off look. And with this, you won't mind, because you don't really want to see this bleeding, because that just makes your shade a little bit muddier. But with this wood, I don't think we need to be that worried about it. Because it's just going to give it all a blend anyways. Okay, so that takes care of the outside there. And I think I'm still a little wet. I can see some shine. So maybe we'll start shading into our pumpkin some. You're going to do it the same way. You're going to get some fresh water. Just dab off a little bit. And this is where it's going to be a little bit more detail, because you're going to want to round and shape your pumpkin. You don't have to do this shading. You can just draw straight lines. It just all depends. Like, I'm going to make my pumpkin come here. And, you know, you see how you have this little rounded part. So it's just going to be this little fat part come out there, so that he doesn't look like he's just, you know, standing flat on your board. So I think about right in here is where my stem's going to be. So I'm going to want to bring a shade up to there. So then my next one is going to come here. And then I think I'm going to bring one down around here. And it's all just your vision of however your pumpkin you want it to look. And I'm going to get it really wet so it really blends. Okay, and then we're going to have a little section here down to here. And if you do shade something and you get too muddy of a look, you will take your clean water and you will just brush into that section and it'll take away your shade that you don't like. So yeah, with paint, you can always correct or paint over. And then my next one, I want to go here. Just need a little bit of a shade there. And since that's a little bit muddy, get my clean brush and just wash it off. And just drag it. You're probably not going to see this one there anyways, because once I get my stem on there, probably never even see that one in your greenery. I'm just going to give it a little darkness back there anyways. Yeah, you kind of just got to think of your light source too, where your light source is coming from, so that'll be which side your shade will be on. But I always try and just think of, if I'm working to the right, my shade's going to be on the left. So I think I need a little bit more of a shade there. It's a little bit lighter than what I like. That's what's nice about acrylic paints, is you can just fill it in and blend. A shade is a shade, and you can highlight it so that you can hide a mistake. Just all depends upon what you like. Okay, so I think that makes a good little fat pumpkin. Put this under my water. Clean out my brush again, and I think, yep, our green is ready for the next round. Probably going to go through a whole roll of paper towels. Okay, so we're going to pick up our board, give it a little sideways because we're going to work this way. So we're going to try and go straight. I'm not too good at doing straight lines. So we're going to do our, that looks like it used a darker shade of green. So I'm going to try this darker Hauser dark green to do my next row. I think it'll add a little bit of unique look to it. So you get it, and you're going to get some water, add it to your paint. Okay, and I think I'm going to start on this side, and I'm going to go probably almost like the 2 brush widths away, and you're going to make sure you catch where your paints connect. And you're just going to do a straight line as much as you can. And if you don't like a color, once you put it on there, you can go over it with a different color. And all it does, it just gives it even more of a unique look. So like, yeah, if I don't like it like this, I'm thinking, do I want to try black? Or do you want to try a blue? Or even a brown? It's just however you want to do it. You can, there's no right or wrong with your color choices. It's just whatever you prefer. And I just dip my brush in just the plain water, which helps extend your green also. And it's like if you have it too green in one area, if you just add the water, it washes it down. That one kind of got wide. I don't mind. Okay, and we're just going to do one more. I think I'm going to make it right there. A little more water. We're going to start probably, I'm going to start at the top. And we're going to make our line, our first one. We'll see where it ends at the bottom. So we know how close to our pumpkin we are and how much we're going to fill in. Okay, that'll be perfect. Okay, that looks good. And if you see you want it darker where it overlaps, because I know it shows in the picture a little bit darker, you can go over it with just your green and make those areas darker. Depends on how much you want it to show up. I want it to look darker next to the pumpkin anyways because it'll stand out better. Okay, and that's how you get like a plaid look. And you can go in and you can add the other little details, which I'll show you after a bit, which will make it pop a little bit more in that too. So now that'll be good. Our next, we're going to go back to our pumpkin and we're going to add our stem and some of our greenery. So I'm going to take my round brush, because you wanted something that's big enough that's going to cover, but not something that you can't use for detail. And I'm going to take my burnt umber, okay, put a little bit on there, dab your brush. And your stem can be as big as you want, as long as you want, however you want. And I'm going to see how my pumpkin comes in here. So that is going to be like your stem going to want to start from there. So I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to drag it out here. I'm just going to make your outline. So then you have a rough estimate of where your stem is going to be. Okay? And then you're just going to fill that in. Okay, and while that's drying, we're going to do some more detail on our pumpkin. We're going to add some highlights, because we don't want it to look like it's just a brown stick coming out of your pumpkin. We might have to do a little bit of another coat here just because of the white, but we might be able to just handle it without shading. Okay, and then you make sure you clean your brush in between. Okay, so now this is where I'm going to take my dry brush, and I have a paper towel here. I always like to buy these shop towels because they don't give you lint or anything when you're going to work with dry brush, because the whole purpose of a dry brush is you're using dry paint and you're applying it to your board. So you're going to, dab your paint and then you're going to swoosh it off so it's not a heavily loaded brush. So with our pumpkin here in our picture, it shows it has like a reddish highlight to it. So I got tomato spice, but you can probably grab any color you want. And you can just put it, and you're going to dab your brush in, and you're going to take it and you're just going to swirl it off onto your paper towel. Okay? And then you're going to come over, and anywhere you think you want a highlight of the red, you're just going to brush it on. And I'm currently going to have to keep it loaded with this wood. And it all makes a difference on what kind. If you got a real smooth wood, you don't have to work so hard at applying some paint. But yeah, you're just trying to give your pumpkin some depth so that it doesn't look like it's just lying flat on the board. So wherever you think you want some, and you kind of just like hit certain areas, like where you think, like since we're using the red, you want to probably keep it where you would think your shade would be more darker. Okay, now this area you're going to probably want to get it pretty good. Oop, almost dipped it into the wrong paint again. And a lot of your colors and detail work is going to come out when you seal it. Your spray seal, you can use a matte, you can use a shiny, whatever it is, but the whole reason it's like your colors for your shading and highlighting, it will really pop once your item's sealed. It's like right now it's like, oh, it doesn't look like much, but when you seal it, that is when you will see it. A lot of people prefer to use a matte finish just because you're not going to get the shine or the glare, so you're going to see a lot of the details from that. But it's okay to use a shiny too, you know, if you prefer that. So I think get a little bit more. I'm not going to rub it off. I'm going to fill it in a little bit better here. And this is such a rough textured wood, I think we can get by with just adding it. Okay, I'm just going to take my paper towel, and I don't want to wet this brush because we're going to keep using it as a dry brush. So I'm going to try and just get out a lot of the red that I have. And now I'm going to go in with a lighter orange. That's why you bring multiple colors out. Okay. Well, this one's fitting. It's even called pumpkin. Oh, I didn't shake it enough. Okay. You don't need much, because you're just going to like highlight certain areas just to lighten up. And if you don't like it, grab a piece of paper towel and you can dab it. Still getting some, because that paint was so watery, it's still getting some of my red in it, but it doesn't look too bad. Let's do some yellow. So beautiful out here today. Of course the wind's going to start up just before we're finishing up here on fine details. Okay, where do I want some yellow? Okay, now you can just eyeball it wherever you think you want a little bit of pop. I mean, I'm sure if you have an artist who is, you know, professionally trained or something, they might say I'm doing it all wrong, but I paint the way I like it to look, and it looks like a pumpkin. That's all that counts, right? So we're gonna let it go like that, and then once it dries off a little bit, we'll hit it with some white, lighten it up. But my stem's still a little bit shiny, so we're gonna let that go for a little bit longer. So maybe at this time we'll do, my picture shows just like little flowers. You can do a lot of leaves, you can do a little bit of leaves. You don't have to do leaves, you can just do like the curlicues. I think I'm going to use some black. I maybe even use this, the chocolate cherry I used, or candy bar, that's right, candy bar. Add some water to your paint. Since it's been sitting on there a while, it's drying a little bit. You're going to want to make sure when you're trying to do like vine work or skinny details, you want your brush have enough water on it so it's going to give you flow. So we can just like start here, and you can do your curlicues, and it's like you can go back through and go over your brush once you get your design that you actually want, and you can fill it in. But yeah, you're definitely going to need a skinny, longer, flexible brush for doing like line work. You can fill it in. You can leave it faint, however you like. And you can add as many curlicues as you want, however you want. You can go different directions, keep them straight. Thanks. Be gone. It's like, I think I'm gonna do one here. Big curls, and a little swirl. Yeah, for fine detail work, you're probably going to want a more even board, more, you know, it's flat, smooth. Okay. Now I'm going to do some stems for a few of my leaves. I don't even know if I really want leaves, but I'm just going to do a couple, just so that I'll show you how to do it. So in order to do your stems, you can use the same as we used for and you're just going to make, let's see, where do I want to put a leaf? Let's just put one, I'll put one here. So you're going to do your line. And let's do another one, I guess, coming out here. So these are going to be your stems for your leaves. And then I think we'll do a leaf coming, where do I want another one? Let's go down here. We're just going to put 3. So then you're going to take and off of your leaves, you're going to start, these leaves are all going up, so you're just going to take and do line work up, and they're going to end with a little leaf on the top. And I always stagger mine so that they're not right next to each other. Draw leaves, one falls. Same with here. You're just going to make your your lines. Your greenery is going to pretty much hide it, so you can get wider, shorter, however. My favorite thing to paint is pine trees. I love doing pine trees for Christmas time. They're so fun to do. My sister, when we would do crafts together, she would hate to do pine trees. And she always hated to shade too, so I always ended up doing her shading. Shading in her pine trees. But I don't sew, and she sews, so it's kind of like a swap. If I need something sewn or done, she does that for me, so that helps out. Okay, so then we're going to go back to our wider brush, and we're going to make little flowers. This one has just like little white flowers, and I think I want like maybe a more of a actual flower instead of these little white. I don't know, these kind of look like pussy willows or something. I don't even know what, I don't know my flowers well enough to know, but I think I'm going to just do some little white flowers on mine. Okay, I'm going to dip my brush, get it wet, dab it off. You always want to work with a wet brush when you're painting and a dry brush when you're doing highlights or something. So let's see. This one looks dry. So we're going to just do a little flower. We're just going to make some petals coming off of our flower. Just to give a little bit of detail. And then we'll do some greenery so we know where our flowers. And you're just going to have them here and there. You want to work with the point of your brush to get your point of your flower. Okay. Do a couple flowers down here. That one worked out really great because I really loaded the paint on there, so painting is as you go, you learn. So that worked. And we'll add some more after we do some greenery, but right now we'll clean it out and do some leaves. We got our dark green, got our light green. We'll do the same with the leaves. You add some water to your brush, dip it in your paint, and you're going to just make these little shaped leaves like so. So you want one on the top up here. And let's see. We'll have them coming off. I think I'd rather do regular little pumpkin leaves than this thing. If I was to do it again, I'd say no leaves. But I guess it does make it not look as plain. I would rather go plain and simple myself. Good enough. That's enough for me. So then what we're going to go do after that dries a little bit, then we'll go through with some of the light green and give it a little bit of detail, because otherwise they just look like green blobs. So I think our stem's pretty dry now. So I have a smaller angle brush, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to highlight it with, let's do some black. Usually I don't like to shade a lot in black, but seeing it's how it's supposed to be like a dead stem, I want to do a little bit of black. Like I said, you put your paint on the tip, then you brush it off, and we're going to come down along the base down here, and then I'm going to bring it up along the stem. Your stem tip's going to be darker. We're going to have to wait till it dries so it looks like it's, you know, not just cut off. That don't look too bad. So then you're just going to add some darker detail, but I like to go through, add some greens, some whites, some yellows, browns with your shading, just because then it doesn't look like it's just plain. So I'll just go over with some green, because it once was a live stem. Clean up my edge a little bit so it doesn't look so jaggy. Okay, let that dry again. I think I'm going to go through with my lighter green. Add some. Okay, so now we're going to go with our lighter green and add a little bit of detail to some of our leaves, just so they don't look like they're just dark green leaves. You don't have to get them all, just get a few. It just helps them come off the canvas a little bit better, especially like in your darker areas. You might want to do your lighter green just so it will show up a little bit better. Now I'm just taking the tip of my brush and touching. I'm not doing anything fancy, just so it gets like a little wedge. So it just kind of makes them pop a little bit. Just give it a little smush. So that it kind of almost does an automatic shade for you, so you don't have to really go and do anything else to it. Okay, I think that looks good. And then we could even go back, wash that out, and you can hit them with some white on certain ones so that they'll pop even more. Just take the same brush. It don't make a difference. It's like just where some of them you do fine line. You can do, and then you could actually just a few here and there. Good enough. And then you can come to and you can do some line work while you have your paint on your stem. So that makes them pop a little bit more. And then you can add a little bit of white to your pumpkin. Even though it's not a dry brush, it has less paint on it, so you can just put it in there a little bit. Okay, so our white flour is still a little bit wet, but I think we're going to put like, let's see if I have, let's put a little bit of yellow dot in their center. And then I think I'm going to add like a little detail so that my stem just looks a little bit better there. But we're going to take the round end of my brush. Let me wash this out before it dries. Don't want to get my paint dried on my brushes. That's a good way to ruin your brushes. So you're just going to take the end of your brush, dip it in your paint, and you're just going to give it a little dot in the center. Usually you can get about 2 dots out of one. Okay. Red cast, just so it doesn't look like just a plain white flower with a white dot in the middle. Okay, so now that I stuck my hand in some, we want to make sure you don't put the rest on your paintwork. Okay. Those look good. I gotta do something right here. I think maybe I'll just highlight it a little bit darker. Where's my brush? We're going to do a little bit of a black highlight so it won't look so blah right there. Finish it up a little bit or something. So it's got to go all the way around it. And then I think what I'm going to do, just a little bit of a shade back here. Since this guy's in the dark, I'm going to make him a little bit darker. Okay. I think he's pretty well done. Unless, what we could do too, like I said, to add more detail up here, you can do some black line work a little bit into your stripes. It's like it just depends upon how you want it to do. It's like you can do like a black line where it needs to be darker on your dark spots. You can pick just one side. just so it stands out more. Make sure you don't go into your flower, Cheryl. You can do both sides if you want. You can even do one side of the... It's up to you what you want, how much you want something to pop. You can even make it more plaid looking by putting another thin stripe below it in another contrasting color. But I think we look good. It makes me happy, so that's all that we go for, so if it makes us happy. So, and the last thing you do, and you always do this, is you sign your work. You find wherever spot you want, and I always just use my initials, but you always sign your work. Okay, and that's it. So I hope you join us next month, and we'll go from there. Thank you, and remember, spray it. When everything's all nice and dry, you're going to want to spray seal it. When I get this one all done and dry and sprayed, we'll show you another picture. Okay? Thank you.